Suitcase listeners, this is Cindy Chen, and your host for your podcast for the rest of your life, My Childhood Suitcase. In this episode, I have a celebrity of sorts joining me today with his own suitcase from outside the United States, actually. He is a fellow podcaster who is co-hosting with two or three ladies of his own show called Death and Taxes Podcast. Please welcome Mr. Benny.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Cindy. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for joining me on this podcast today. And I'm so excited to just have you unpack yourself today.
Well, thank you for having me on. Yeah, I'm glad you asked me, and thank you for hyping up my celebrity status. It's certainly not a celebrity, but both like-minded podcasters, and good to be involved.
Well, why don't you tell the listeners about yourself, how you came up with your podcast, Death and Taxes?
So I started initially with two female work colleagues, two friends, Carrie and Lizzie. There were two of us originally. There's now three. Yeah, we worked together for many years in the taxation industry, but we found that we were just obsessed with true crime. We liked to talk about it on our lunch breaks and, whenever we could. And we just enjoyed that. And I remember at the time, I think it was Carrie suggested, because she's quite bubbly and outgoing, she said, we should make one. We should do a podcast. And the others were a bit, that's a good idea, but not too serious about it, I think, because there was just so many out there already. And, there's those self-doubts, I suppose, of what are we adding to it? And are we going to be funny? Are we going to be interesting? All those things, and just other priorities. So for whatever reason, it didn't happen. But many years later, actually, we worked together for probably 10 years in total in different teams, in different roles. But I eventually moved to Sydney and, saw none of them really, except for just sending each other links to crimes occasionally.
Well then, I'm really happy that you've actually have launched your podcast, because we would not have met through Instagram, by the way. And I find it pleasantly surprising that you actually enjoyed listening to my podcast. Just wondering how you came about it.
Obviously, you as someone who was regularly interacting with us and, messaging on Instagram and stuff, we could tell that you're a regular fan, and that's how you and I kind of got talking, and I learned that you had your own podcast, and can I ask what it is? And that got me onto, obviously, I listened to, I think it was probably every episode, probably within maybe 2 days it took me to to just binge them all back to back, because it was great. It was very... it was a format I wasn't used to. I haven't sort of seen that sort of almost audio diary sort of format. This genre is just completely new to me, as well as someone being so, open and vulnerable, and, talking about themselves and analysing those things about themselves. I found very something I was certainly not doing myself, and so that was impressive to me. And it's just seeing how different people look at their situations and how they unpack them, and how they've what they've learned out of them is just fascinating.
Thank you. I'm really glad that you were able to give me a listen of some of those episodes.
Every episode.
Every episode. Wow. I'm really happy. I got one of my biggest fans here. That is so great.
5-star review, glowing review on the Apple Podcasts.
I'm very honored that you've listened to almost every of my episode on the podcast. Anything about any of the episodes that touched you deepest?
I think it's hard to name one in particular. I think now that you're sort of including some guests in your episodes, I really enjoy those ones, because I think as someone who's listened to every episode, I've found myself a few times in every episode thinking I wish I could ask this, or I wish I could ask more about that, or I wonder what, it's such a good way to sort of be able to have someone bounce off and receive. And so having someone on your podcast was kind of I liked that fact that they could come in and give a different point of view, or ask more questions about what happened with that, or what, but in terms of episodes that stood out to me, I think I mean, the episode about your relationship with your grandma, particularly, I think you and I kind of talked about that a little in our chats as well, is just, I don't know how deep you want me to go in terms of our personal conversation, but, obviously nice but hard to sort of hear you being upset about the situation, and also thinking about, your grandma who herself may not have kind of had that sort of affection, that in her own childhood, and how that might affect generations and things like that. That kind of got me thinking about that. So that one really stood out to me.
Yeah. Oh, I'm really glad. It is when I was doing this episode, I had not talked about it with I didn't really talk about it with anyone in particular, because I just never really thought of processing it, and the fact that I cried into the microphone. It was actually beautiful. I'm gonna describe it as just beautiful. Just having to really sit with my microphone and talk it all out like I would to my diary. Because I keep a physical diary as well, and just talking it out, maybe into a dictaphone or something, and just, I actually thought of maybe not putting it out there, but I'm really glad I did. I was brave enough to put it out.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I mean, you've got editorial control, right? So you could, if you didn't want to include that, you had the chance to take it out, but there's something quite vulnerable about just putting it out, sort of as it was, and sort of being present in it. It's very cool. Are you not
that vulnerable of a person?
No, I don't think so. Oh, I mean, with certain close people and certain relationships, I would be, but certainly putting myself out there publicly it's something it interests me. I thought it was a great concept, but it was something I would never have thought of myself.
Well, why don't you tell the listeners more about yourself, your suitcase?
Sure. So I grew up in a small country town on kind of the east coast of Australia. I was an athletic kid, but not sporty. I was never very good at sports. I was quite outgoing. I did a bit of theatre, like community theatre productions.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But I think I always kind of, I knew that I was gay quite early, I think. I probably didn't know many other words. I didn't know about bi or anything like that, but I knew there was something kind of different about me. And as I got older, probably from high school onwards, I started to kind of notice more that it was becoming harder to have male friends, and I sort of was feeling more and more different and excluded, and it was sort of, I didn't really understand it at the time, I think. But
different how? Exactly.
I started to feel like the things about me that usually helped me make friends or maintain male friendships weren't working anymore, that we sort of felt more and more different. And obviously, that's part of growing up and developing. But I had a falling out with a friend, and that, I think he called me gay or something. And that was nothing unusual. Like, it was, boys bully each other, sadly, but it was nothing I hadn't heard before. But for some reason, this time it sort of stuck. And so from then on, like, high school was pretty terrible for me. Like, I didn't really sort of have friends. I had a few guys who were nice to me, and I'd sit with them and eat my lunch and things like that. But I felt quite different and didn't play sport and went to the library as often as I could. So I was a very sort of lonely kid.
Oh, yeah? Well, tell me more about that. Well, I'm sure that your high school years, those high school years are tough for anybody.
Yeah, it was pretty miserable, I guess. Like the actual, classes are generally okay. You sit there and maybe you're with someone, maybe you're not, but lunch times and things like that, or where you're around other kids and not feeling included and things like that, it's pretty difficult.
Were you always very shy?
I was quite outgoing in my younger years. Like I said, I did theatre and things like that. I was it was never a problem sort of in primary school, but then in high school I definitely shut down more and more, like as I sort of got older and as felt more different. And home life was okay. Like I came from a comfortable family. I have one older sister, my parents together, always taken care of, and couldn't want for anything. But my father, at the start of high school, my father was diagnosed with cancer as well. So my mum did a great job in sort of keeping the family together and all the food on the table and everything. And, but kind of through high school, there was also kind of that going on the side as well. So that was sort of difficult for the family. And eventually my father went into kind of hospice care, and mum would sort of, travel back and forth looking after him and looking after us. So, but not great years, high school, but...
What was your dad like?
He was an electrician by career. He was quite a bit older than my mother as well, like sort of a large age gap. So he was kind of an older father. He was an electrician and retired, and was an artist. He was a painter, and did that quite a lot. Yeah.
Did you get along with him?
Yeah, so he was a creative man. Like, he was a thinker. He read a lot of books and things like that. So I definitely got an interest in maybe my creative side, probably from him as well. Like, I've done some digital art, but just storytelling in general, like creative writing and things like that. My dad was kind of very, a thoughtful sort of guy, and I think I probably got a lot of that from him, I think. And when we go on family holidays and things, like, he would... Do you know those books, like, we call them pick a paths or choose your own adventure books, where you kind of like make decisions as you read the books? You know those ones?
Oh yeah, choose your own adventure.
Yeah. So he would tell stories. Like, if we were on a bushwalk or something like that, he would make up a story in his head and tell it to us. And as children, we got to decide, like, oh, do you do this or do this? So it was, and then I got into creative writing as I got older too. So I think he kind of influenced that in me.
Wow, that is so fucking cool. You're allowed to cuss, by the way. What was your favorite adventure? Remember anything in particular on one of your bushwalks?
I don't. I don't remember a specific story. Like, the memories of the process, I suppose, and the fact that he told them. I don't remember the storylines exactly. I know that he was quite into fantasy, and we grew up on movies like Willow and those types of things. So I think there were those types of adventures, but I don't remember the specific stories or characters anymore.
But he's like one of those fantasy action adventure kind of types.
I think so. Yeah.
Or what do you call those sword and sorcery adventures?
Definitely, yeah. I'm trying to think of other movies that he likes. I mean, he would have loved Lord of the Rings, for example. He did pass away before Lord of the Rings came out, but I think that he would have loved that trilogy, for example, like that, the just real storytelling and the fantasy and the magic and things like that was right up his alley.
Oh my god, totally. I absolutely love Lord of the Rings, and my boyfriend, whom we shall call Mr. E, because he doesn't do social media. He likes to be anonymous. He and his dad are actually big fans of J.R.R. Tolkien. So naturally, when The Hobbit came out, they both went to see it, and I wish it was a duology. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I wish it was just a single film, because it's just a tiny little novella with a bunch of songs, etc., etc. But I think, and I'm sorry to say this, Sir Peter Jackson, but I felt like he stretched it out too long. The Hobbit, that is. But that's just my 2 cents on it.
I agree, and I love filmmaking, things like that. I love Peter Jackson and his work, but I get the feeling that he probably wouldn't have chosen to do that himself. I do wonder if he had it his way, whether it would be 3 movies or not. I get the feeling it wouldn't be.
Maybe, but who knows? Unless I can confirm, I can only speculate.
Yeah, it's speculation.
Have you ever wanted to really get into the business of movies and all that? You mentioned something about doing a lot of community theater and all that.
I enjoyed the theatre. I guess I never really thought about doing it professionally. I think it was kind of a fun thing as a kid, and it probably boosted my confidence and things. I don't think I ever really thought about it as a career. I loved movies, but I think as I got older, I realised that I probably wanted to do behind the camera. I think visual effects or post-production or editing or something was probably where I sort of was focusing on in film, I think. And I did study a bit of that. I did some digital art studies, and I did learn some animation and editing and kind of an array of post-production stuff, sound, the editing side of things, or visual effects, animation stuff. It was kind of just a broad course in all sorts of post-production, not specializing in anything. But I think I realized that I enjoyed it as a process, and I love film and I love studying film, but I don't know that career-wise it was right for me. I don't know that I think it's something that I wanted to enjoy as a hobby and an interest, but I don't know that I felt it was a career. Maybe that's part of, being Australia is not so, it's very competitive. It's a competitive industry here. There's not as much going on here as there is over there. So maybe opportunity-wise I didn't pursue it, but I love that. I love studying it without the pressure of having to feel like I need to deliver something and putting those pressures on myself to actually make something and be happy with the work and putting it out there. I think I enjoy that as a hobby, I think.
Have you ever maybe tried to, give it a go at an animation studios or whatever?
I think the fantasy would be to work somewhere like Pixar or, like every animator wants to work there, right? But again, it's just such a competitive industry, and in Australia in particular, there's just so little work. There's Animal Logic. There's a few places around who do great stuff, but hard to get into. And I could tell that what I was doing took a lot of work, and I was never really kind of happy with results. And I knew that it didn't come as naturally to me as it did others. I knew that I wasn't sort of as skilled or maybe as creative as others out there. And so I didn't think, there's no chance of Pixar for me, but it was a dream for a while.
You never know until you try. Because how would you know if you have failed, if you have not actually given a go at that?
I think for me it was kind of about not wanting to take the fun out of doing it. I think I enjoyed it. It was almost meditative, for me to sit down and to sort of focus on doing something, or the challenge of working on a particular, assignment, like, learning a particular thing. But I don't know that I wanted to have the pressures of production delivery and all the sort of stuff that goes into filmmaking, I think, and not having maybe a creative choice in what you're working on or what you want to do, and having to kind of work on things that maybe you're not happy with. I think I'd never wanted to take the fun out of having to deliver something. I think I wanted to just jump around as I felt I wanted to, and if I ever made something I was happy with, I could put it out there. If I didn't, then I've enjoyed the process.
Well, let me see. Can it be that you don't like to be in an environment where you have somebody breathing down your neck as you're trying to work under a very heavy deadline, for example, say on the next Pixar film?
That's exactly it. All their films are great. They've got some great people, great minds behind them. But in reality, working at the smaller studios and things, you're not always going to necessarily have a project that you're as passionate about, or you may not always have much creative say in what you're doing, because so much goes into these animations and things, right? There's people who do the physical modeling, there's people who do texturing, the lighting, there's so many different people touch on something that you may not have too much control over the story that you want to tell, or those types of things. So working in a team would be great having someone breathe down your neck is fine if your heart is in what you're doing, but if it's not, or if you don't have the time and skill set, the people support there to deliver what you need to Disney, then I can imagine that would be tough. But
you don't like to work in a corporate setting?
I think it depends on what they're doing at the time, I suppose. I think I'd be passionate and I'd be doing extra hours, my life would become that feature if my heart was in it. But if it wasn't, then I would find it hard to have to deliver day in, day out, churning out work that you're not really wanting to do.
That's definitely understandable, that you want to keep the passion, but you don't want to be in an unhealthy environment where you're kind of forced to say, you know what, I give up. I don't want to do this anymore, etc., etc.
Yeah, And maybe studying filmmaking kind of taught me that when you're given assignments and you have the pressure of having to deliver something to a standard by a certain time, maybe just doing that for a few years kind of taught me that the tinkering on weekends was fun, doing what I wanted to do in my own time, on my own, whether I finished it or not, whether I showed anyone or not, that was kind of what I enjoyed. But the pressure of having to deliver something that they ask for by a deadline, I kind of realized was not impossible, but might take the fun and the actual enjoyment of tinkering around and playing and creating little things, as well as the fact that a lot of animators don't make a lot of money. Like it takes a lot of, maybe in Pixar, I'm not sure, but it'll take a lot of time to sort of get to that stage where you're successful and can get those jobs anyway. So I think I realized that I was better off, that this was something more I was happy to do creatively on the side rather than as my career.
I totally understand. You want to be able to keep paying the bills while still keeping your dream alive.
And the dream, I guess, can change as well. Like my dream when I was younger was to work at Pixar, but I guess I realized that my dream was probably more to keep enjoying the creation in my own time, in my own whatever I want to do, to be able to shift around and move on different projects as I want to and put something in the bin if I want to.
You ever thought of maybe opening your own studio out of your out of your flat?
Animation studio? No. Then I'm taking, if I took on clients to create ads or something or to do work for them, then again, it's sort of having to do what they want in the way that they want it. I could do that, but it's not what I want, no.
I think you would be a really great digital artist, even if it's not with Pixar.
Maybe. Thank you. I don't know. I've done all sorts of work. Like I've done sort of 2D art or 3D animation, and maybe it's good. Maybe one day I could do a short film or something and put it out there myself. Like that's maybe I could see something myself doing. Not setting a goal of I'm going to create a film and committing to it, but just if naturally, organically, if I ever created something that I was like, yeah, I'm following through this and I'm really happy with how this is going, and I could see myself maybe putting something out that way.
Oh, I think you should definitely do it. Do a short film. Because I honestly believe in people. I honestly dance for people who take small, actionable steps that build towards a bigger goal. In fact, actually, I saw this picture the other day of where this guy is tearing through this, is digging underground with the pickaxe. Wait a minute, I just need to let me pull this up for a sec. I have this picture right here somewhere. If you'll bear with me. Oh, here it is.
You never know how close you are. Never give up on your dreams. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One man is digging through what is about to be a wall of diamonds, and then the other on the bottom gives up just before reaching the wall of diamonds. And the slogan says, "You never know how close you are. Never give up on your dreams." Isn't that fantastic how these things work?
Yeah, I mean it's true, isn't it? Yeah.
I always clap for people who never give up on their dreams, because that's the way I am. Because this year I have actually been working towards launching my acting career, looking for talent agencies. Now here in the Seattle area, the talent market here, talent agencies are rather small, to say the least, the database. But it is growing. I mean, it's not as big as it is in LA, Los Angeles, but it is growing in the Pacific Northwest. But I do know that more money is in making commercials, by the way. Which is kind of interesting, because it would also be a great transition for me to evolve from theater to the screen, being in front of the camera.
Definitely, yeah, yeah. And I can imagine there's so much more work in commercials and advertising and things like that. Have you ever looked at any extras acting? Have you ever done that before? Film extras?
I have actually, I've actually not done any extra work. I was actually, you were the second person who have asked that, aside from the talent agency with whom I had a meeting today.
Yeah. I only asked because I have a friend here in Sydney who is retired and he has a lot of time on his hands. And just for fun, really, he signed up. I don't know how he does it. I suppose he probably goes through an agent or something who looks for extras. But it's amazing the stories that he tells me about different films or music videos he's worked on. And I've seen him in music videos. You know, it's funny. It's he loves it.
Somebody famous?
I don't know if they're famous internationally. Like Delta Goodrem, I don't know if you know her. She's a big Australian musician. She hosted Australia's version of The Voice, I think it was. Or yeah, she's big, big here. I mean,
Not particular. I'm sorry. What was his name again?
Her name Delta Goodrem.
Oh, so good. I'm sorry. Not familiar with her name. Doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how big she is outside of Australia, but she's very well known here. Like, not Kylie Minogue level, but close.
Probably, but there's definitely a whole bunch of people that I should say I know that there are maybe a few people who've come from Australia that become uber famous, like Hugh Jackman and Nicole Kidman.
Mm.
I'm a little surprised that when you told me that about all the other Aussie actors that I haven't really seen any of them that have reached that caliber yet. Maybe I don't know what you call the A-list caliber, but it is you're right. It is pretty saturated.
I find it interesting because I've done quite a bit of US travel myself, maybe close to 10 trips maybe over the years. And I do chat to a lot of friends kind of online from overseas. And I'm always fascinated hearing how little of our media kind of gets, like in terms of how many of our films get distributed outside of Australia, or movies and musicians, for example, like Delta Goodrem, who might be so well known here. And I'm always amazed by how little of our movies are successful, or our artists are successful outside of Australia. Even Kylie Minogue, for example, it took so long for her to sort of really crack America's market. That's sort of only really recently that she's become what she is.
Oh, her, that I very much know who that is, Kylie. I love her music.
Yeah, and she was certainly known in America since her, Fever albums and earlier albums, but it's only in recent kind of like now that she's kind of really exploding and her audience is going up even further.
Kind of like the Aussie Madonna.
yeah. And a lot of our movies that I might assume are really well known. I mean, I think you and I mentioned or talked about Muriel's Wedding yesterday. I think
You're terrible, Muriel. What's that?
Yes, that was it. But so many of our other movies that are just as good as that, or as big and well known here, don't get distributed outside of America or aren't really successful. So it's just fascinating to learn which ones make it and which ones you guys have no idea of.
It is, yeah. It's very, very fascinating. And I'm gonna try this again. How's this for my take on an Aussie accent? You're terrible, Muriel.
She does it with a really particular voice, doesn't it? You're terrible, Muriel. She's got a bit of a... Yeah.
I've always been fascinated by the Aussie culture, particularly Crocodile Dundee.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only thing I know of, and what Mr. E and I have shared is, you call that a knife? This is a knife.
Did you enjoy the Crocodile Dundee films that you watched them?
I've actually just seen a few clips, especially the knife clip.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And that knife of his is a big ass knife, that's for sure.
Yeah. If I had to give a few suggestions of films that maybe your audience haven't seen or heard from Australia, if you haven't already explored Strictly Ballroom, like Baz Luhrmann. That's one of his earlier films. Baz Luhrmann, who did Moulin Rouge. If you haven't seen Strictly Ballroom, it's brilliant.
Oh yeah, Strictly Ballroom.
Okay, yeah. What's another Australian film I can recommend for people who may not know it? The TV show, it's a TV series called Summer Heights High. I would recommend that. It's a very, very funny TV series.
I don't think I've heard of it. Can you spell it for the listeners?
So summer, like as in the season, summer, Heights, Heights, and then high, like so as in high school. And it's a mockumentary style TV series where one actor plays multiple roles throughout the show. So he'll play a teenage schoolgirl and he'll play a drama teacher, and so he plays like 3 or 4 different roles, and it kind of is in a mockumentary style, just cuts back and forth, and it's very true to that era of what it was like to go to high school in Australia. It feels very real as an Australian to watch it, and the way it can be a little, there's bullying and things like that, but it's done in a way that's kind of satirical, and it's quite funny. I would highly recommend it.
I'd like to talk more about what high school was like in Australia compared to the U.S. Because I've always been curious about the culture for you through your eyes.
Yeah, and I'm quite ignorant, I'll admit, to what your high school would be like. Like, I see probably more of it from the fact that we consume more of your TV shows and movies, so we get an idea of what high school would be like for you guys. So we have primary school, which is kindergarten, and then years 1 to 6. That's kind of what we call primary school, which I think is your elementary.
Ours is pre-K through 6. I'm sorry, not through 6. Pre-K through 5. Then middle school, 6 to 8, and then high school, 9 to 12.
Okay, so we have K to 6 is our primary school or elementary, and then we just have high school, which is 7 to 12.
Yeah. K through 8, and then 9 through 12.
But we don't have middle school though. I guess we kind of have just the 2. It sounds like you might have
the grammar schools, I believe.
Did you say that there's 3 schools that you go through?
Yeah.
What's middle school?
Three
schools. So we have 2.
I wonder why that is.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There is kind of an exception. Like there is. So we go through to year 10 to get your school certificate, and then you go through to 12 to stay on to get your high school certificate. So a lot of people will just get their school certificate and then not do the final 2 years, if that makes sense.
I also have heard that there's some sort of special school, like if you transferred from New Zealand, you have to take a few classes to catch up. One of the, what do you call it, a TAFE school? Am I saying this right?
I haven't heard of that, to be honest. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the New Zealand school system's like. I thought it'd be similar.
It's like here in the US, it's like a running start or a head start or something or other. I'll have to look that up later.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So yeah, possibly it might exist for people coming in who haven't met the, like let's, for example, say they come from a place that doesn't do that year 10 high school certificate. Maybe there is some sort of process for them to come in so that they can continue on and get their high school certificate or something. I'm not sure what that would be, but it probably exists and I just don't know about it.
School certificate? You mean like a school diploma?
Yeah, so we kind of have 2 levels. So year 10 is when you get your school certificate, and a lot of people who don't plan on going to university or kind of like, coming from a rural area, a lot of people will stay on to get their school certificate, like kind of the minimum, but don't really want to go on. They might want to go back and do farm work, or they've already got a job lined up. So a lot of people don't stay on to get their high school certificate unless they're thinking of going into some sort of academic career that would need it.
That's very interesting. Very, very interesting. You mentioned, let's go back to your high school years for a second. You mentioned you had a bit of a falling out with a friend.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't remember what it was even about. Like it probably wasn't. It was just a normal school fight or something, I think. But I think it just kind of happened at that time where things like sexuality are kind of becoming more noticeable or developing. Like there's a book called is a professor. His name's Dr. Alan Jones, and it's called The Velvet Rage, and it kind of talks a bit about why this happens. And I read it much later in my adult years, but found it really sort of eye-opening about kind of why do those feelings kind of happen, and why do boys sort of why does that identity crisis kind of happen around that time? And it is to do with the fact that puberty and things like that, you find of those differences start to become more noticeable of when someone is different, and those, so I think it was kind of just more the timing of that fight that really, rather than the fight itself, which wasn't memorable.
Well, I'm kind of wondering, do you remember what led up to the fight? Was it something that he didn't like about you or whatever?
I don't know what it could have been. I know that we were probably not part of a larger group. It was probably more just we'd hang out with just the two of us often. And I know that we would do a lot of sleepovers and a lot of things on the weekends. And sometimes, when you just have a friend that you're around a lot, sometimes you kind of maybe just needed that personal space. And it was probably just a fight over nothing. I can't remember exactly what it was, but those were usually the types of fights we have, is just when you've just spent a bit too much time around the person and you start nitpicking about little things, or things bother you. I can't remember what it was about.
Did you at least and what happened afterwards? Did you at least shake hands afterwards, or just not talk to each other anymore?
We never really talked again. I mean, he, interestingly, having just talked about that school certificate thing, he did leave at year 10, I think. So I don't know that we never had the chance to sort of make up as adults or anything. But it wasn't a fight that it wasn't a physical fight. It wasn't it wasn't a punch up or anything like that. It was just whatever disagreement it was. We went our different ways, but didn't feel the need to make up. I suppose, or I suppose we just drift apart as people sometimes, and there was no sort of connection really for us to get back to.
It's kind of interesting, the difference between boys fighting and girls fighting. Boys fight with fists, but girls fight with words. That's for damn sure.
I mean, yes, but hopefully it's changing. But boys certainly, can be much more physically violent. Girls can be too. I mean, I don't know what it's like over there, but we've certainly seen slapping and things like that between females as well. And likewise, men can be quite brutal with their words as well. It's not that they can't be just as vicious verbally. But yes, boys do often, or are maybe raised to see that and continue it, to speak with their hands, maybe.
I wonder if maybe it's to fight it out. Maybe it's best to duke it out, or send words fighting, especially through social media. I mean, I've actually avoided being friends with girls because of the name calling and girls can do terrible things too.
That was it's interesting you mentioned that. That was something I remember jumping at when I listened to that particular episode. Was sort of I wanted to ask you what is the difference between a male friendship and a female friendship then, because you did mention that you had trouble or didn't feel as easy to make female friends, and I wondered why that would be. What is it about male friendships that you find different, or that you found easier to make?
Well, male friends, I find it easier to do stuff with, like playing video games actually not video games. I playing sports.
Mm-hmm.
And female friendships involve a lot of conversation, a lot of talking, and I guess at that time when I was growing up, I was just never really interested in going shopping and all that. I was a tomboy growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I just found it easy. I think I just found it easier to hang out with boys because they were easier to get along. And then as I was getting older, or maybe a little wiser, I started doing some soul work around myself as to why I put up that wall between me and the girls my age. But I've I actually found it much easier to be friends with older women that are around my mom's age. Intergenerational friendships. I find it much easier to be friends with older adults than the girls around my age, because I have different interests. Yes, like, like for example, if the girls like Taylor Swift, I like Rolling Stones. They like the Barbie movie. I like watching Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah. Do you think, if you don't mind me asking, like, because you mentioned on the podcast that you have autism, correct?
Yes.
Or the spectrum, yeah. Do you think that played a part in why it was kind of more preferable to sort of be into the sports and the things like that, like playing or being with the boys versus the girls? You mentioned they talk a lot. Do you feel that maybe that's because kind of working through growing up with autism, was it kind of maybe harder to engage in conversation, and that's why you kind of drifted towards the sports and the active sort of friendship? Could that be part of it?
I am very glad you asked, and I thank you. Thank you for asking that. Never really thought about it, but maybe that is why. Because like I said, I found it very hard to talk to people.
Yeah, and that might explain why it's easier to pick up a ball with the boys or to watch Conan the Barbarian to watch a movie. Maybe that is kind of developing why you sort of gravitated towards those things. Maybe not so much because girls are meaner or to do with the fighting, but maybe it was more about like those connections were harder because of that through your schooling. Maybe just a thought.
Yeah, because like I said, I found it very, very difficult to engage with girls, particularly when it was just empty conversations, especially when they say the word "like" almost after every word, and I went in my head would nitpick everything, nitpick at the uhs or likes, right? So I would just try to be more careful and deliberate with how I speak and use bigger words, might say.
Mm-hmm.
That, I would say I found it easier to play with boys because they do stuff. They do stuff, they do stuff, but they don't talk. They didn't talk. And I found it easier for me to relate to boys that way growing up. But as I said, as I was getting older, I found that I need to have more female friends. To talk about girl talk, because I can't do that with Mr. E. That's for sure.
I think it's quite interesting how, like, even just the term girl talk and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of kind of change going on with the gender stuff and things and gender norms about what is girl talk or boy talk, because there are boys who love talking about that stuff as well, and there are girls that like doing active sports things. It's interesting, and I hope that is kind of changing in the school system and for kids, so that they can feel like that there is that group there who are interested in the same thing, and it's not a girl thing to go do that. Like, I grew up with one older sister, and I would often hang out with her and her friends on the weekends, and we'd go riding our bikes and we'd go to the river and do all sorts of like physical things, so there must be girls who do those things and role playing and, all that sort of stuff. But I suppose it depends on where you are and what the culture's like there and the things like that. But for me, certainly it was a very outdoor country town. The girls are out. Not all of them. There's not, they're not all out on motorbikes on farms and things, but there certainly are ones who are.
Oh yeah, totally. There are also girls who like to hike as well. I mean, who like to bushwalk.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. Yeah. So I suppose it depends on the size of your community, of where you're growing up, and what the norms are there. Where I grew up, there were no shopping malls, so even if that was, even if there was girls like to shop, it's not that there were places really to shop. So there's still, and there's boys who like shopping too. So I don't know, but maybe if you're it depends on where you are, I suppose. If you're near a mall and that's the popular thing to do and they all hang out there, then maybe that's where they would all go.
Maybe shopping for the next soccer ball, for the next football or something.
Yeah.
Or the the newest rugby ball.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I actually had decided that I needed to have more female friends with whom I can talk about what you might call delusional, say soul work, crystals and all that, and meditation, all that jazz. I actually started to started having more friendships with similarly highly sensitive women, because I'm that sensitive myself, and that become. I think it's that I started shedding this old identity of a cool girl. You ever heard of this term, cool girl?
No. What does it mean?
Cool girl is basically cool girl is kind of a dating term, like a girl you know how when you first meet a girl, the girl be cool with you watching Adam Sandler and drinking beers, and she would do some of the same things just to keep you interested.
Oh, so it's kind of like someone who just adapts their personality to you or something, rather than being authentic, they're trying to, or vice versa. Is that what you mean? Like someone who's trying to seem cool so they become something? Okay. I hadn't heard that term before, but yeah, I know what you mean now.
So that the guy doesn't leave her. I did a whole lot of that in my adult years. Being the cool girl, liking some of the same things that guys did, so that he wouldn't leave me. I would perform a lot, and I did a whole lot of performing. I did a whole lot of performing for when I was dating I had my fair share of guys before Mr. E came along.
Mm-hmm.
I did not realize that those were actually, I was not honest. I was not authentic with myself. I was not true to what I really want versus what he thinks I want.
Yeah, okay.
And all that soul work that I've done over the last few years had been to shed this old identity of the cool, laid-back girl into a highly sensitive woman that I truly am.
Okay.
But not too sensitive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. So in terms of like interests or relationship goals and things like that might have been different between you, but you pretended they weren't or something, or, you kind of, or you hid emotions or how you felt about something to seem like you were easy and cool and, yeah, like no problem. But things were bothering you inside. Is that what you mean?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You hide your as a girl, you hide your emotions so that you don't drive the guy away. But then over time you start to abandon yourself along the way.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. And I suppose like there's probably guys who, I mean, yes, there's a stereotype about, women are emotional and things like that, which is not true. Men are just as emotional, but certainly here there is that like, oh, women bosses are emotional. There is that kind of like outdated sort of thing about women being emotional and the pressure that women can't speak up for themselves or be loud or be outspoken, So having to repress that would be, I can't imagine, but I love like a disagreement or when someone can correct me on something that I'm doing or, like if someone can speak out, I think I enjoy it.
Well, in any of your previous dating experiences, have you ever had to perform for the girl? Just to keep her around or that she wouldn't abandon you?
It's the opposite for me, I've always sought out people who not sought out, that's not the right word, but I've always appreciated having my own interests and them having their own interests and having our own overlaps. So for me, it's not about matching myself to them or them to me. I actually love being able to go away and do my own thing, and that's my thing, and that's, my time. And for them to do the same as well, like have certain things that they go out and do with friends that I don't enjoy doing. And but I am quite introverted and do like to do my own things or to have my own, I don't ever want a partner that matches me perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's see. If you did meet an ideal partner, who would that be?
Someone who is able to challenge, like someone I can talk to, someone who will challenge me mentally and will kind of teach me things and I teach them, or, someone who can have maybe what I would call like deeper conversations on all sorts of philosophy, whatever, like whatever it is, or whether it's literature, just someone who's a thinker, I think. Someone who has kindness and manners is important to me. I like kind people. I don't know. I don't think it. I mean, if they have a lot of the same interests, that's obviously going to make me more attracted to them in the first place as to why I start dating them. Then we'll probably, if they're into those types of things, then that's probably what we connected about anyway. But I still, if they had ones that are different that I didn't enjoy, I wouldn't pretend to do it. I wouldn't expect them to do mine.
I'd like to know what were some of the biggest lessons from your dating experience, from your previous relationships.
The biggest lessons from relationships. I think it's kind of what you just said, really, in terms of not like forgetting yourself and things like that. Like I
know I had to do a lot of masking.
Yeah, I don't know if it's masking for me. It was maybe like, for example, if I have a group of friends and we're dating, but I wasn't putting much effort into other parts of my life, not because I was faking my interest in these things over here, but just because I was neglecting kind of things that I enjoyed doing that weren't as important at the time. Things like, my friendship with Carrie and Lizzie and things like that. Like, while I was dating, I was kind of neglecting that. And so I suppose one of the lessons from that breakup was that, those people, if all they'd go and do is go to bars and go to clubs and, do like those types of things and go out on cruises and stuff like that, I was neglecting some of the other relationships in my life and those people as well, and things that, fell by the wayside. So I suppose that was a lesson from that breakup, was that I want to kind of invest in those people as well and not forget them just because I've got this relationship going on. And
those were not your thing, bars and clubs, etc.
They were. They're fun. I mean, I loved it, at the time. But I suppose if that's all you do, like, is every weekend or every month there's like big parties and things like that, and your friendship group is built around that, then when the relationship ended, and those types of friends, they're great to go to clubs with, and they're great to go to parties or for, but they're not necessarily there for you for other types of things. Like if you need help, or if you're kind of struggling or need help with things, those people maybe wouldn't be the friends that you're going to for that type of thing. So I suppose it was more about like I just invested too much in the activity of partying, circuit parties and things like that, but didn't really sort of take the time with other relationships where, or getting to know them outside of that activity or outside of that scene. It was all about like, going up to to this place there's a big party out of this place for a weekend, or, we're all going to go on a cruise for, a big party cruise for a week or something.
Don't neglect. So lesson number 1, don't neglect your own life and your own friends.
Yeah. Or like have a variety of friends. Like those friends are great for that sort of activity, but have the friends that you can watch Conan the Barbarian with, and have the friends that you can play football with, or whatever it is that you're into. Like, maintain kind of those friendships as well. I think that was probably my biggest lesson, I think, out of probably my breakup, is just to not forget those parts of yourself or those people just because you've got this other thing going on.
Anything else? Any other lessons?
I think, I don't know, maybe this is controversial. I don't know if your listeners will agree with me or not, but I think I've learned that particularly as a gay man, it's something that the dating pool is a lot smaller. And
in what way for a gay man?
Population wise, to do with shame and the way that gay men deal with it, and whether or not they're out, in or out, and what stage of their acceptance are in, and things like that. So just finding men who are at that stage in life where they're wanting to have a forever relationship, and they're the right type of person, and everything else is a match. It's kind of harder in this world. So I think maybe kind of I've realised that the idea that we have in our head when we're raised is this white picket fence and the house and the kids, but that dream isn't necessarily possible for gay men, and it's kind of, we grow up not knowing what our standard is. What are we supposed to be working towards? And that's part of like why we feel different. And I think maybe the likelihood of finding someone who's all those things that I look for in a person, and the right stage of our lives, and everything's great, and still 50 years later and 50 years down the line, we're exactly the same people, exactly the same, having the same interests, I feel is quite hopeful. Like, I mean, I hope that happens, but I'm also probably a bit more open to the idea that maybe one person in your life won't fulfill everything, and maybe, it's probably made me a bit more open to the idea of like, well, if a partner cheats on me, for example, is that the end of the relationship for me? Or is that a sign that maybe everything else is great in our relationship and they're perfect and they're, but sexually there's something, is there an aspect in my life that I can't fulfilling them and they don't fulfilling me? It's kind of just opened my ideas to the fact that to be more forgiving of those things, and to kind of maybe be more open to the idea of, if someone ever asked me for some sort of open relationship, growing up, I'd always say no, definitely not. But maybe I would, So
Nobody. I can tell you one thing: open relationships are a bit overrated. to tell you the truth, particularly the casual ones. I don't like the word situationship, and I would correct someone and say casual relationship, not situation. What the kind of bullshit is that?
Yeah, I don't. I've seen that term used as well a bit on social media. I don't really know what it means. I guess it's sort of like we're starting to date, but we're not, or I don't know what. Yeah, I suppose it comes down to whoever it is, whatever it is, just communicating with them, and whatever works for you. If calling it a situationship is what is what works for you, whatever that is, so long as both people agree and they know what their boundaries are and they communicate it, then I think that's okay.
I have always heard, and this is actually from my own personal experience, is that when someone tells you that I want to keep things casual, it usually means that person is not serious about you and not committed to you and only you. And I say this because I've compromised myself a few times too many, because I wanted the guy to stay and not to leave me, because of this whole core limiting belief of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough of love.
Yeah, it could be a number of things really. Like keeping it casual could be I'm not looking to find a partner right now. Like maybe this is just a friendship. It could be that it's early days and they're kind of seeing, like, maybe they are casually in and out of dating, and maybe there's a few different people they're seeing. I guess it depends on how long into the relationship we're talking here. Like if they're wanting to keep it casual in the first couple of months or something, that makes sense to me. But yeah, there needs to come a point, I suppose, where someone brings up, I remember doing it with one of my partners, for example. I remember saying, just so you know, like I'm kind of at this point with you now where I'm feeling like I would like to be exclusive with you, and if you are at the same point, great, let me know. But that's where I'm at, and thankful. I mean, he said, I'm at the same point as well, and so I think it's just about having that conversation with them to say, like, right, yeah, now I'm at that point where I would like to be exclusive with you. Are you at that point as well, or can you let me know when you are? And if that point never comes, then I'm going to eventually let them know that I'm no longer interested in them. You know, like, I guess it's just depends on how long are you prepared to wait. I think I'd say I'm quite forgiving. Maybe again, maybe it's partly to do with the gay scene again, is the people being a bit more. The dating, I imagine, is quite different. So I'm probably a bit more forgiving about, like, maybe they're seeing a few people at the same time. And apps have probably changed that, right? There's so many options out there of meeting people and organising dates and things. Maybe they're seeing a few people at the same time and they're trying to figure out who I am and who they are. And yeah, or maybe they've just come out of a big breakup and they're just needing a bit of space without a relationship. You know, there's a lot of things it could be before it's... before I think I would take it personally.
I'm wondering if maybe people these days are afraid to talk these things out because they don't want to hurt the other person's feelings or how that person will react.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. I always try to be quite honest myself. Like if I'm not ready to date, I'll say I'm not ready to date, you know, and this is why. Or, but I know a lot of people aren't, and I've certainly had partners who don't necessarily feel comfortable bringing up their feelings, and they'll have the conversation if I initiate it, but they're probably not going to initiate it themselves. So I think communication can be difficult for people, but I certainly wouldn't want to be in a relationship where someone couldn't communicate with me. Even if I'm bringing it up, that's okay. Like if I'm sensing something's wrong and I ask about it, but I want someone who can talk about their feelings a bit, you know, even with a bit of prompting.
I'm actually glad you've come to a point where if something is up, you would say, hey, what's wrong? Hey, something is up. You want to talk about it, etc., etc.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because you may not always know. Like they may not be ready, or they may not have the words yet to say what they want to say. But you can often tell when something's bothering them through the body languages and things like that. So I am the type of person who
sometimes as an autistic person, I don't read body language that well.
Of course, interesting.
So it's definitely best to just spit it out. Spit it out. Tell me what the hell's the matter with you. Were there any of these relationships where you couldn't communicate effectively?
Where I couldn't communicate effectively. Yeah. Yes. I think I dated someone for a while who's like just a really terrific person. Everything about them was great. And I think, but he was a bit older and I was younger, and I think in my head, I suppose I hadn't been in many relationships and dated, and I probably did want to sort of see what's the party scene like and what's this like, and he'd been there, done that, and maybe wasn't as interested. And I think I might have, in a way, sort of, instead of just being able to say that, like I want to go and do these things and I want to, you know, I want to see what this is like and I want to go to these types of parties and I want to try. I think I mentally kind of closed off the relationship and started to shut down because I couldn't just say like, I really like you, but I need to go and do these things, and staying together wasn't an option for me. So I think I sort of, in a way, gave it. I hope I'm wording this right.
So when let me think. Let me get this straight. You were together with this person, and then but then there were problems along the way. But you couldn't bring it up.
So I don't know how to word this or whether or not your audience would want to hear it. I'll think of another example where I couldn't speak. I'm sure there are examples. I can't think of any right now about like a time where I haven't felt able to bring something up. Maybe in the moment I haven't been able to, or I've wanted to wait a while or something like that. But I can't think of something that I've internalized too long without being able to bring up.
It's okay.
It's definitely happened. I'm far from perfect. I certainly don't always practice what I preach, but I just can't think of a particular example.
like if you're angry about something that that person did, but you don't know how to verbalize it, or maybe something's bothering you, but you don't know how to word it.
I can't think of any off the spot. I'm sorry.
That's that's all right. But yeah, I think I see what you're saying, that that in that relationship that you tended to shut down quite a bit because you didn't know how to put your emotions into words or something. It was complicated. Well, I can tell you one thing. I'm really glad I'm in a serious relationship where I did not have to meet Mr. E on a dating app, thankfully.
I don't mind dating apps, to be honest. If they work for you, then great. But I do also think there's a different element of time wasting to those as well. And yeah, I think it's great if you can meet someone in person, but it's also great if it's also great to see like there is lists of interests, provided they're being honest and saying what they're into and looking for what they're saying they're looking for.
Do you find it easier to meet people on dating apps or through or in person, say through mutual friends?
Oh, through mutual friends, definitely, yeah.
I know it was definitely hard during the pandemic.
Yeah, definitely hard to meet during. I was actually dating during the pandemic, actually, so that was much easier, and we were living together at the time. So, yeah, I can't imagine what that would have been like.
What was that like during the pandemic?
What was it like? It was actually fine, to be honest. Like I actually work from full time from home anyway. So from the start of the pandemic until now, I haven't done one day in an office. So whereas my partner was working in a type of job where they were actually going into work, so he could actually still go into work. We weren't allowed to go out at nights and socialise and weekends and things like that. But for a while, there was a time where his job allowed him to go in and do what he needed to do. So I still had some alone time and things like that. Socially, I'm sure we still got a bit sick of sitting watching Netflix and doing those things, but at least I had company, and he had a garage where he went out and did like ceramic work and things like that. So there was enough space between us physically that we weren't always in the same room. It was a large enough place that we could still have our own things going on.
What were the challenges?
Just seeing other friends, really, like just being able to go out and meet up with other people and go out in public. And there was a point where even picnics weren't allowed. Like there was so many people going out and picnicking and things like that, and they were so close together. They actually had certain parks, they shut them down. You couldn't even do that unless you were like a certain distance from people and your own maximum number of people together. And so just not seeing friends really was kind of the challenge. Nothing wrong between us necessarily, nothing unusual, just the usual seeing a lot of each other and no one else. But that was probably the hardest bit, was going out.
What happened with him?
Just different stages of life, I suppose. Like, I suppose he was unsure to kind of what he wanted to do in life, career-wise, and was kind of struggling with that, and was considering going back to school and things like that. And a lot of our decisions, like where we were living and things, had been based on his career and what he was working towards. And I think when he wanted to go back and study, I realised maybe that I'm in a different stage of life where I'm wanting to buy a house and travel and things like that.
Just irreconcilable differences.
I think we were both kind of in our own sort of personal crises of like kind of who are we and what are we doing career-wise and where are we going in life. And because we were kind of both going through that at the same time, I don't know that we necessarily had the effort or the ability to work on each other. And I think we just kind of realised that we were sort of drifting apart, and that I was, for me at least, it was kind of more I need to maybe work on myself and what I'm looking for versus what us together are looking for.
Or more like you just didn't like each other anymore.
I don't think it was that, to be honest. I think it was just because it was quite a calm, like mutual thing. It didn't feel like, and there was still a lot of. I mean, I still feel very have high feelings for this person. It's more just that we were spending less and less time together because of what we were wanting to do and where we planned to go next and things like that. And and that stress, I think of like, his stress about his career and what he was doing, and my stress, I had my own things going on as well. It was kind of a bit, we just weren't making that time for that kind of romantic sort of coupley stuff anymore, and it just sort of naturally drifted apart. It's not that it's not that we disliked each other or anything like that. It's just, we're just too focused on other things, and I think kind of self-work was probably more important for both of us at that time.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's not, it's not a bad thing. And, to be honest, I mean, who knows, maybe one day we'll be at that point where we are at the same point, and things might work out between us.
Well, that you might find someone else who will make you feel safe, who has the same interests as you.
Exactly. Yeah. It could be anyone. I feel that people can come in and out of your lives, and maybe it's not necessarily that they are or aren't compatible. It's that it's a timing thing. So I've certainly been in relationships where everything's great, but things are going on at the time where it's just not, neither of one or the other isn't able to date right now, and or they've got a bit of self-work to do before I'm willing to date them. So I think people can come and go from your life. Some people I would certainly never want to date again, but who knows? Could happen.
Do you think maybe you are a much better person right now compared to, let's see, 10 years ago? Matured as a person?
I hope so. In some ways, definitely. But in other ways, no. Like, I've got, definitely emotionally, and, I've learned a lot of lessons where I feel like I'm a better person in that respect. But there's other things that I've let slip, like things that, like how much I go out and socialise, for example. Like, I'm really quite introverted these days, and a bit of a hermit, to be honest. So, I feel like that's something that I'm quite bad at these days, is forcing myself to get out there and do things and activities, and I'm a bit, maybe part of that is working from home so much and things like that, is I am a little bit more insular, maybe. So I think maybe that's something I can work on. But I've definitely, overall, I'd say I've improved.
That's really wonderful. I'm really happy you're doing some work on yourself, Benny.
Thank you. Certainly, my gym is not on the best it's been at the moment. That's another area where I've dropped off a little bit, is my diet and exercise. So that's something I'd like to get back on track.
What's stopping you?
Motivation, yeah.
Well, it doesn't hurt to actually start over and try again, day by day, step by step.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I've literally got a gym across the road as well, so it literally would just be a few steps to get across the road. But it's a motivation thing, and it's when you go through the ups and a little bit of a slump, maybe a bit of lack of motivation, really.
And last question I wanna ask you is, what do you want to tell the listeners? What is it you want to leave the listeners here with today?
What do I want to leave the listeners with? I guess this is something that I've learned from unpacking my own suitcase, or a process that I have. Whether or not this is right, this is what works for me, so I'll share it. Something I'm really conscious of when I'm trying to think about something from the past, or when I'm unpacking something, or something traumatic or hurtful, or just something important from the past. I really try to focus on separating emotion and how I felt, or like how I interpreted something at the time, from what I know of certainty. So when I look back at a fight that I had, for example, it's not the feelings I'm trying to recall. It's kind of what led up to it, and what did they say? Because I feel like when I'm trying to unpack something from the past, it's so easy to continue on with the same narrative and the same childhood eyes as how I saw it then, versus looking at it with my adult eyes now. And that's something I'm always really conscious of, is trying to strip away my own biases or emotions that I might have had when the event happened, and looking at it kind of with neutral eyes, I suppose, is kind of what I try to do. And I found that really useful, to be honest. Things that have maybe bothered me, or I've thought that I was really hurt by somebody in the past, sometimes surprised by the number of times I can kind of flip my mind to see it in a completely different light now, because I realized that I could play a bit of a victim, and I was quite highly sensitive, and I was probably a bit less aware of, things going on in that person's life that might have been contributing to that I had no idea of or just didn't care about, So I try to pull all that stuff apart, and sometimes I unpack things and have found forgiveness out of it, like I forgive that person for this, or I forgive myself for being mean to that person, because I can I look at it in a way where I'm maybe seeing it from their eyes, that type of thing. Does that make sense? I hope that's useful for them.
That totally makes sense, and it's also important to look at your little child in your mind and just be really gentle with little Benny, little Benny, and to give him a hug, play catch with him, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. Like that hurt that little Benny felt, for example, those feelings are all still very real, and they've still shaped who I am today or whatever. So the hurt is still there, and I definitely, might feel sad for that kid still. But I just try to have a bit more of an adult understanding of what was going on and why things happened and why kids act certain ways. And I don't know, for me, it's helped kind of get closure on a few things, or to, forgive people.
You try to tell little Benny, I love you.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of you, and that you've done enough for the day, etc., etc.
Yeah. As a kid, like I know I did things that were kind of mean myself and things like that. And, do you ever have those things where you beat yourself up about them and you feel silly? You feel like you're like, oh, gee, I shouldn't have done that. Or do you have those types of things?
Mate, I used to do that all the time. Not anymore. Not anymore. Not as often. No. I do not fall into that trap anymore. Because there was years ago.
Yeah.
Years ago. I can't remember what I did last week.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I'm trying to, forgive myself for those things and forget them.
What matters is that the great things that did happen for you is all that matters, and what you did that was great is all that matters. And the things that you've accomplished and are proud of, that is something you should look back on and say, yep, I fucking did it. And on that note, do you want to tell the listeners where to follow you?
Sure. So it's we're only on Instagram. Our podcast is everywhere. But again, I'm not necessarily recommending you follow me if you're not into true crime, because, there's it's not for everyone, and I totally understand that. But it's at Death and Taxes Pod is our Instagram, so that's the name. And it's on Spotify and Audible and all that, but yeah, you'll find it.
You want to do the honors on the phrase, I always sign off in every episode?
I've got it, yep. I see you and I hear you.
Yeah, that's definitely good enough.
Yeah.
All right. We love you guys. Mwah.
I see you and I hear you. Or is it the other way around?
Wait, I'm sorry. Say that one more time.
I see you and I hear you. Or is it the other way around? Is it I hear you and I see you?
I think it's more like, no, I think it's just right.